Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nathan Sutherland with the Gospel Tech Podcast, and this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. I'm excited to talk with you today as we continue our Start Here series, the kickoff of the 2025 podcast season, as we talk about using the best tech well. So last week, we talked about questions we could ask of our tech, figuring out if it's healthy. The first one is kind of what kind of tech are we using? This week, it's how do we use the best tech well? It still comes down to, well, frankly, three questions, because we need to be asking a lot of questions of our technology. And when we ask questions, we hear answers. Rather than coming in with all the right answers and making sure that we establish perfect rules, asking good questions of our tech with our children is going to help us make sure that we're training our children, that we're equipping them to use their tech well, and that they get to use all the tech that helps them use all the tech that helps them look more like Jesus, which is really the goal with all of our technology. We want our children to use all the tech that makes them look more like Jesus. We want them to use all the best tech. So what is that best tech? There's three standards. It's first, is the tech safe? Second, is our child ready? And third, is the fruit good? And this will always make itself into other conversations. So you will hear me repeat safe, ready, and good a lot. Because it has been born out of these conversations for multiple years. So technically, I've been doing this work since 2016. That's when the Flint and Iron side started. That's when I was speaking in public schools and organizations, and that was great. And I still do that. I talk about hope and I talk about tech in a public environment, no Bible verses cited. And when it moved to gospel tech, when I started bringing the hope of the gospel, the good news that we're sinners saved by grace, and that should affect our tech, like what I use, but also how I use it. Tool and drool was the first thing to come up. What kind of tech are we using? Does it help me create? Does it help me consume? Pretty clear. Then all right, how do we have an assessment for safety? Reset. That's what we talked about last week. How do I know if this is improving or impeding my daily engagement in the life God gave me? All of this time is God's. So am I using it well? Am I stewarding the gifts I've been given, starting with my time and my little choices, and then extending that to my tech? And today it's okay. I get it. My reset is healthy with the tech we're using. I know the kind of tech I'm using. We have some hedges and boundaries, which we'll talk about in coming weeks. But how do I know what tech? My kid comes and says, Mom or Dad, can I have this device? Can I play this game? Can I listen to this music? How do I determine if this newest form of tech, which doesn't have a lot of resources out there on the internet yet, how do I know if it's good? And that is what we are trying to talk about. Or if you're nostalgic for tech and you want your child to jump into a technology that you already know is a fine technology, it doesn't connect to the internet. It's already pretty good. What about for my kid in this season? That's what safe, ready, and good are really meant to help us do. So that is the conversation we are having today. Let's get it started. First, when we talk about safe, we are talking about Luke 11:11, and I want to read it for you. It's one that I love to reference a lot. It's Jesus talking, and he's specifically talking in context about we need to go to our Heavenly Father and ask and seek and knock. And then in 11:11, he says, what father among you, if his son asks him for a fish, will instead of a fish give him a serpent? Or if he'd ask for an egg, will give him a scorpion? And then he goes on to say, if you who are evil know how to give good gifts, so does your Father in heaven. And that's absolutely true. And we need to turn to our Heavenly Father for wisdom when processing tech. And then when we go and apply that wisdom in our lives, we need to remember what Jesus says, that we're good parents. And as loving parents who are evil, who need a savior, just like our kids need a savior, we need to give them good gifts. So if our kid asks for an egg, Mom or Dad, this thing's going to give me something good. It's going to give me entertainment. It's going to give me connection with friends. It's going to give me, knowledge that I didn't have before. It's going to give me an outlet for my passions in music or gaming or design or whatever it might be. Those are all amazing things. And make sure it's an egg, not a serpent or a scorpion, not something that's going to hurt them or people around them. So that's our first piece is this tech safe? On its face, by design, is it safe? So the safest tech in the world is going to be tool tech, because tool tech comes with no strings attached. It's not trying to get you to do anything any more than you want to. The gray area comparison for a tool to a drool would be Microsoft Word versus Snapchat. Not Snapchat, versus Duolingo. Snapchat would be an example of the farthest reaches of leveraging behavioral design to keep you engaged. But I didn't intend to bring that up now, so I'm going to skip it for now. What I meant to say was Microsoft Word versus Duolingo. At Microsoft Word is word processing. You can type. There's no goals. There's no reminders. It never follows you up with something you didn't ask for. Like it knows you're writing your first book and it starts sending you excerpts from people you know who've written their books. Like it's not doing that because its goal isn't to make you feel bad or to get you to come back more often or get you to browse something you didn't intend to look at or to spend 5 minutes more typing than you'd set. You'd set a 20-minute timer and it doesn't want you to go to 25. It just wants you to write. And when you're done, it saves it and it waits for you patiently. Like no one's ever received a reminder from their bicycle to come out and ride, unless your bicycle's a Peloton. It definitely does. And that is behavioral tech. That is technically drool tech. So keep that in mind in terms of the behavioral loops that are there. Microsoft has none. Microsoft Word has none. Then we go to something like Duolingo. Again, it helps you do something you want to do, like learn a language. That's great. I want to learn a language. And it does have some behavioral hooks. If you want to go learn, say, Spanish, and you're like, today I'm setting a 20-minute timer. When 20 minutes come up, it's going to let you know, hey, just so you know, you're only 50 points away from going up a league, or you're 50 points away from being demoted a league. So you should probably give us 5 more minutes, get your 50 points, and you'll be able to sleep well tonight. It'll send you emails about that. It can send you notifications about that. It has goals of retention. So it wants to take your time, focus, and money. It will help you learn a language in the process, but it is designed as drool tech. And that is important for us to know when we talk about, is it safe? The safest possible tech for the youngest possible brains in front of a screen is tool tech. No hooks and behavioral loops built in. It's not trying to take your child's time or focus or money. It's just letting you do what you want to do and then walk away. So if it's tool tech, then it's the safest. There's not going to be any browser on it. There's not going to be any app store on it, and there's going to be some kind of accountability so you know what happened. So again, the safest tech for our children is going to be tool tech with no browser, no app store, and accountability baked in. Example might be Microsoft Word. You don't need accountability necessarily, although with Microsoft Word, I guess if you're really getting crazy, there are ways to share notes and use notes like a social media light where you can add other Microsoft users and do it. So accountability on your computer is still a good idea. But the idea is that it is tool tech, that there's no app store and there's no browser from it. Then you have this social function that you do need accountability outside of it. So maybe Microsoft Word isn't the safest. Gab phone would be an example of the safest. A Gab phone is a device that is designed to be a dumb phone. It doesn't have an app store. It doesn't have a browser. When it gives directions, it doesn't use Google, so there's no links they can type in and then find a browser that way. And you can only contact people that have been cleared by the device through a parent app. So that's a lovely example of the ultimate kind of form of tool tech. Another example might be something like a Yoto player, which is, how to explain it? It's basically like Audible on cartridges. So you purchase the cartridges, you plug them into this device. It does need the internet. So the device or the cartridge is actually just a signal that it downloads the file onto your device then. So you have this Yoto player, you plug in what effectively is a Game Boy cartridge, but it doesn't have the music on that specific cartridge. It actually has a little RFID that then tells Yoto that you've paid for and want to now download this story. It downloads it to you and then you can play it. That's great in that it gives you some of the independence. Your child can pick the stories to listen to. The bummer is you do need internet, not for browsing, but for connectivity to be able to make that initial download. And then it can be used off the internet. You can use it in the car. You can use it on trips. So it's a cool idea. I know there are other versions like it, but I like Yoto because it specifically focuses on getting you the story. It's not trying to get you with little miniature figurines or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know some people love those systems. I just like the simplicity of Yoto. I don't use it. My kids were a little bit too old, so I actually still just use a old busted up speaker and Audible off my phone. And then I play it and set the settings to make it stop and those kinds of things. But I like the independence and the low techiness, if we're talking about safe tech, of something like Yoto. And I like that there's devices coming up that allow our children some form of agency that they've earned. Yeah, you can listen to a story on your own of these 5 stories, right? If my child uses my phone, you can use it, but I'm Audible on an iPhone. I can use this screen. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting what it's called now. I was going to call it screen time, but it's not called screen time. It'll come to me. But you can lock it by triple clicking your power button, and it allows you to block out the screen except the play button. So the story's locked in. You can't go to anything else, but you can start and stop the story. You can't even change the volume. But you can do this, or you can actually lock your phone, and Audible now will play from the locked screen. So then they can change the volume and fast forward and back, but they can't change stories. So those are options of safe tech. You can absolutely scale up and say, all right, but my child's ready for more. I'm dealing with a 12-year-old. Cool. That scaling is, yes, going to depend on the safety of tech. There's tech that's safer as you get older, but not necessarily. Just because your kid's 16 doesn't mean I want your child to have a phone. Not because I'm mean, but because I don't hate your child. Some kids are going to make mistakes that will hurt themselves and others, and they're not ready for that level of independence. And that's the second thing we look at. First, is the tech safe on its face? Then it's going to be, is your child ready? I gave you some examples of safe on its face. Actually, before we go to is your child ready, I just want to let you know that's where we're headed. But let's look at some tech that is not safe. On its face, by design, this is not safe tech. The first would probably be the smartphone. Smartphones are not safe by definition because they are designed to run apps and they are designed to keep your time, focus, and money. They are app delivery systems. Most of those apps are drool tech, and most of that drool tech is more powerful than your child's developing frontal cortex. So your child is going to say, I want to be good and follow time limits. And almost all the tech they download goes, you know what? We're more important. Give us your time. So giving a young child a smartphone, anyone under the age of 15, and if they're 15 or older, they need to have at least asked for it. If your child's not asking for a smartphone, don't give them one. Opt for a Gab phone or a Bark phone, which has a nice intermediate step of freedom. It has an app store, but you can release apps one at a time instead of the entire app store by age level. So get something that scales in the safety lane. Smartphones are inherently unsafe. They have unlimited, without any parental controls, they have unlimited internet access, unlimited app access, and they are designed to soak your focus. And when we're talking young developing brains, there's a lot of damage that can be done there. We are seeing very little evidence that a smartphone in the hands of a young child is good. And when it is good, we see no evidence that it outweighs the massive amount of negative that happens. Specifically, young children are getting overstimulated. They're running into bullies. They're running into unhealthy strangers, specifically pedophiles and predators. They're running into pornography. They're running into harmful content, talking about eating disorders or disordered eating, which I do like that way of saying it. Because you can get through it and you can get a healthy relationship with food. So I do like saying it. Disordered eating, self-harm, suicide, violence in news, not to mention just disinformation that they don't have the context to be able to process and figure out, like, was that real what I just saw or what I was just told? Or is that just someone being the internet and saying words because people will listen to them? It's not a great spot. Don't give your child an unfettered smartphone. Can you help make a smartphone safer? Yes, but you're going to be fighting its design to do that. You're going to be setting up parental controls that lock it down. You're going to be removing apps and resources. You're going to be putting in accountability. My phone, I have an iPhone. It's as dumb as you can make it. I have parental controls set up because I want them. So I asked someone and I set up parental controls and they set the passcode because I don't need any extra apps. I have all the apps I need. I don't have any social media on my phone. Even though this will end up on social media, I use social media. I even go to social media, but I do it through my work laptop. Work laptop is more accountable. It's also a lot more focused. It's the browser experience in something like YouTube is different than the app experience. The app is really, really targeted for you and it's really powerful. And I frankly can't put it down. So I don't even have YouTube on my personal device. And then I have one browser, Safari. And then through Safari, I have Covenant Eyes so that two other people who love me always see what I see. So my phone isn't the safest, but it's not the most dangerous either. It is still an iPhone. I can still browse whatever I want, but two other people always see it. I don't have an app store to distract myself. Any social media I use is always through the browser, so it's always accountable. And basically, I've had to make that phone, I've had to break all of its features. And if you go, yeah, but why wouldn't you just use something else? Because my phone refuses, or my family does not want me to show up in green in a group text. That's actually the reason. I was going to go Android. They're like, you can't. We don't even include the one other family member who's on Android. We just include the spouse. So don't do it. So in a family of 7 where 5 of them are ladies that I love, I agree to make that happen. So, and the other one is my dad, just in case you're like, there's one lady he doesn't love. It's just a weird way of saying all of my sisters and my mom are like, show up in blue. So that being said, the unsafe tech, smartphones, is unsafe. It is drool tech delivery en masse. It has an app store. It has a browser, and it is not accountable by default. Again, Gab phone and Bark phone would not fall into those categories because they are designed to be safe. But then you go to another form of popular technology, TikTok, by design is not safe. It can be used well. There's amazing gospel messages on there. I'm currently choosing not to put my content on there just because I'm so conflicted about the resource itself. But TikTok, if you've ever used it, if you haven't used it, just go to TikTok.com and watch the very first thing that'll pop up. You'll get a video designed for you, and they will immediately put a feed and start building a profile on you before you've ever signed up. Cookies allow them to track it. If you choose to sign up, they'll just make that your user profile. But you will get a feel for how overwhelming. I mean, people doing hair and little dogs doing stuff. And then, footage from on the ground in Gaza and in Ukraine. And then people talking about their diets and their nutrition and showing off their bodies. And it doesn't have to be morally wrong to be traumatic, especially for a developing brain. Even just in the fact that the average video is 5 to 20 seconds and the average kid watches for 43 minutes. So we are talking, 120 videos is the least they're watching in an average day, but you can also get to 400 some odd in a day, and it's just rapid fire information, totally incoherent in terms of its sequence. They're not the same people posting. It's not the same idea. You can't choose it by topic. You can train your feed to you click and you like on specific ones. I'm only going to click and like worship music and sermons and stuff. And you can train your feed, but the rest of the stuff is still there. There's no way to say, only show me these 3 topics. That's not what TikTok does. It is by default, again, unsafe. So if your child is on there, just know that that is unsafe by default. Maybe your child is ready for it. Maybe your child has good fruit from it. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying as a designed feature. TikTok is unsafe like a smartphone is unsafe. And the third is Roblox. Roblox is not safe, and that's by design. They have added some parental controls. I went and checked those parental controls out. They don't do anything meaningful. They don't allow you to truly control what your child is bumping into. They basically can't access adult areas, which are areas designed and claimed as adult, but that doesn't stop bad actors. There's no way to actually know what's happening in the game. There's no way to say you can only play these 3 games. We've viewed these 3 because Roblox, the way it works is it's like a multiverse of video games. So you go in and there's thousands of fan-made games you can jump into, which is a cool concept, except it does a terrible job at monitoring those games. There are people who are working on the outside of Roblox side to try to monitor and to try to raise awareness. And those bad games do get deleted, but some of them have been up for months, some of the years when it was early in the process. And it took an outside group to say, hey, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? They always get shut down. But that's not the way a company should be working when you are the valuation that Roblox is making money off minors. So it's on its face unsafe. Can you still choose to play it? You can. Just know that by design, it's unsafe because they're not taking proper steps to protect the minors that they're making money off of. So with that idea, know that that's safety. Then we go, all right, but is my child ready? So if it's the safest tech in the world, you still may have a child that's not ready for it. That's the conversation you need to have. We're talking about Luke 16 for this. We're told one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. This is where we can take our tech conversations, join them with our daily family conversations, and make a beautiful conversation where you are fighting for your child, not just with them when it comes to tech. Your child says, Mom or Dad, I really want to listen to this music. You've reviewed the music and you've said, you know what? This music is a good fit for our family. I like the streaming service you're going to be using from. You're ready for that level of danger because A, B, and C. You've been able to be faithful in the books you check out for yourself. You've been faithful when I ask you to do little things around the house. Like when I say, hey, go ahead and put that down and start getting ready for bed. You say, okay, and then you do it. You've been doing your homework without me having to follow up with you. Or if I do follow up with you, it's the one time to remind you to transition and you do it. You've been practicing for your sport. You've been kind to your siblings. You've been consistent with your friends. You've been engaged in family life. And therefore, you asked me for this thing and I want to give it to you. because I know you're ready for it, right? That's awesome. So that's really what we're doing here. The goal is not to raise the safest kids possible. That isn't a biblical definition, and it's not a good societal goal for us. The goal is to raise healthy, well-adjusted adults, people who know what it looks like to trust and follow Jesus, and then to live that out in their tech lives. So they're going to need to engage tech, but only the amount of tech that they're ready for. And this is where we get caught sometimes. We go, well, I gave my child this tech at 12. They made this mistake. So we took a couple weeks or months off, and then we gave it again, and it still happened. Now my child's 14 and has asked for it again. My question would be, has your child shown that he or she has grown? Has your child shown that he or she is ready for this level of responsibility in his or her real life? When I hear about children or adults who live at home, so 19 and older, say, who are misusing their technology, not participating in the real life opportunities and relationships, and then demanding more leeway while living in their parents' home, the conversation isn't, well, why don't you, A, B, or C? The conversation is, hey, I love you. And you've shown that this would be a bad decision if I let you do this. I wouldn't let you come into my home with your girlfriend or boyfriend and live in your room with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Like, we're not going to do that. We don't support that. We know that's harmful for you. So living here, you have expectations for your sexual behavior. We wouldn't let you come in here and get high with your friends. We're not just going to host that. We understand you might choose to do that, but this is not the location that's happening. We love you. We want better things for you. And if you choose to do that, this isn't the spot it's going to happen. In the same way, if your child is making self-destructive technological decisions, you can say, hey, I get it that you have your own will. This is between you and God. And I don't have to aid and abet. I don't have to pay this phone bill. I don't have to allow this technology in your bedroom when you're living under my roof. Now, if you want to get a job, and you want to pay your own rent, and you want to pay your own internet and tech fees, like, I get it. You can do that. It's not my hope for you. My hope for you is to see you well, and I earnestly believe this is harmful for you. There's not a kid in the world who won't understand where you're coming from. I know multiple kids in the world who go, yeah, good point. I should move out and get my own job so I can do my own stuff. And they will. And they'll live that adult life where we can't go, well, that kid, he's a waste of space. He's not employed. Yeah, he is. He's super employed. He's making good money, and he's taking care of all of his things. And he's self-destructive and not walking in the ways of the Lord and living like a fool. So they can both be true. You can have a functional adult who's still wicked and pursuing foolishness. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason we're gospel tech. There's a reason the gospel needs to come and grip that young man or young woman's heart and show that young person, that future child of God, that the purpose of life isn't just the next pleasure. It's not complete hedonism. It's not just going down in flames as quickly as you can. It's running to the feet of the cross because Jesus can make us whole and make us holy at the same time. That it's not eventually we'll get good enough God can like us. We get picked for his intergalactic kickball team. He loves us now. He wants us to be new creations doing his kingdom work. And that is where the most joy is found. That's why we have a standard. So when you talk about, well, my child's ready, because he's been faithful in A, B, and C, you can give him tech that may not even be the safest. It's also why if your child is old enough, like this kid's 17, has asked for this tech, we know that it's a bad decision because of these situations we've tried already. We've tried independence in areas A, B, and C, independent driving, independent work, independent tech use, independent whatever, and it's become harmful to this child or to the people around this child. That's where you lovingly say no. And within your purview of your home, you can say that even to an adult. Say, hey, listen, that's not how we live here. We love you. We want you here. And your choice is live here and make sure you're being well as a human, or you need to find another option to do those kinds of things. I can say that with I can say it quickly and easily. Saying this to my own child is one of my top 3 nightmares. It is a horrific conversation. I'm not saying that this is a light conversation or that you should say it quickly or flippantly or not feel the weight of that. In fact, please feel the weight of that and convey the weight of that to your child. It doesn't mean that he or she will care in that moment. It means you're being gracious in it. You're not doing this to prove a point or to teach them character. It's to hold them to a standard that you know exists whether or not they acknowledge it. So that is what we're talking about. It is hard, it is difficult, but making sure the tech is safe is our first, and then making sure our child is ready is the loving second. And it is completely reasonable to remove tech that you go, wow, you were ready, but something's going bad. And that brings us to the third, which is, what's the fruit like? You can pick the safe tech, give it to a child who's ready and still have a bad outcome. And it's not the tech's fault. It's something in the mix. So my example from my own life is video games. I wasn't playing morally wrong video games. I was playing video games that I had vetted very heavily. My father was very clear on the importance of a standard and communicated very clearly, not just in facts, but in relationship, that, hey, the spirit world is real. And when you play video games that have lots of magic, and magic that's conveyed in an uncreative way, meaning they use actual like satanic rituals and symbolism and ideas behind basically leveraging the universe to your power, that's going to be different than they use imagination. Mario throwing fireballs. There's no magic in that. That's a magic-y concept, but it's like C.S. Lewis-y magic, maybe even Star Wars magic, space magic. Like there's lasers and you can push people over from distance, like, but no one really like dives into what's going on there. Maybe that's too far for you. I'll give you that. But with magic, that was something I had to process. That was something I was very deliberate on. The point is that the video games I was playing, it could be Mario, it could be Mega Man, it could be an old game, was too much for my heart because I wasn't using games because they were fun. I was using them to be okay. So with our children, that's really what we're trying to get down to is what's happening here? Like, what are we doing with this tech? Is it Galatians 5:19 through 21 or Galatians 5:22? 5:22 is that beautiful verse that we want our children to know when we talk about tech, which is the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness. It's goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control. And the three I like to point out are love and joy and self-control. If you have any tech that improves your child's love and joy and self-control, please give them that tech. Please let them play with it. Please let them learn it and try it. This is where my family got when we were working through a programming app called Scratch, I guess is how you'd call it. Scratch, so it's Scratch with a C, S-C-R-A-T-C-H, scratch.mit.edu. MIT developed a programming language for young people ages 8 to 16 is the target audience. And it teaches them the idea of coding, that coding is sequential, that coding builds on itself, that any flaw in coding means that none of the code works. Like gets them just with the idea of like, oh, we take these commands and we put them in order and we team them with other commands and they reference each other. So if I say when, I can't even come up with one off it, but if you were trying to stop your sprite from walking through a wall, there is a command you can set that says, this is the thing that is the edge of the wall. And then you say, when it hits that thing, it can't pass through it. It equals 0. And like getting your child to recognize like, oh, well, what if I used it in this? And like start problem solving. I didn't love it as an idea because it has a little Robloxiness to it. People make their own games in code and then post them and you can go play them. But my 11-year-old asked Owen, and he's very organized. He loves his control with technology. It's something that gets a lot of fun. It's like Legos, but it's in a digital space. He really liked the idea, and he had a cousin doing it. He was like, can I do this? Now, that other cousin is now doing things like Unity, which is a pro-level coding. And Owen's like, can I do that? I'm like, you can't even do that. Like, no, let's stay here for a minute and enjoy this. So you can even say no to good tech. Just because it's an option doesn't mean you have to use it. But in this case, Owen started using Scratch. That my brother-in-law, dad of that cousin, said, you know what, there's a guy named Griff Patch off YouTube. You can look him up. So we did. Owen found a tutorial on how to make The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Super Nintendo game. And it's not how to make the whole game. It's how to lay out the map and get your character to move and set layers so you can walk in front of a building, but you can also walk behind it, but you can't walk through it. That kind of coding. And Owen's on lesson, I want to say 8, maybe, of like a 16-part series. Each of the lessons is about 25 minutes, but you don't do it in 25 minutes because he'll show you what to do and you pause it. And it's like every 2 seconds you're pausing it and you're finding that tab and you're finding your way. And now Owen is significantly smoother getting his way through Scratch than I am. I don't exactly remember where all the menus are and I don't remember the order they're in and like I'll misclick stuff and he remembers, he's learning, he knows how to use the hotkeys to figure out layers and like, it's cool. It's very fun to watch him learning real coding skills because he asked for it. I did not pick this for him. He came to me and said, Dad, our school has this club. It's called Scratch. Can I use this? I didn't pick it for my son, but it's safe. It's safe enough. It has that user, user created games. But unlike Roblox, I can actually see what he's entering. So you go to it and it like loads another web page basically. And so I can see in the domain what he's visited and I can go visit it again. So it is going to pick that up in image based with Covenant Eyes. I can see what's happening there and there's no interaction. Roblox has a lot of peer-to-peer interactions, whereas in this one, it's just you playing by yourself. Now, you might find the one game that's multiplayer. I haven't seen those yet, but we say 25 minutes coding, 5 minutes gameplay. And if you can't handle 5 minutes of gameplay, like, okay, we don't have to do that. You can keep coding though. You can do 30 minutes of just the coding. It's worked. We do it maybe 3 days a week. But it's an after school when you don't have other commitments and you want to do this and you're done with everything else kind of thing. Again, you're showing responsibility. I'm going to give you this because you like it and it's a positive addition. It's building your joy. He loves figuring out, when he's like, Dad, watch what he can do now. And he's figured out this next thing. It's like building a puzzle. He gets really excited about it. It also builds on his creativity in an area of structure. I've known since Owen was 2. Anna's known since Owen was 2. Anyone who's met the man knows that this young man is gifted in order and structure and math specifically. That's how his brain is wired to work. So it's cool to give him some outlets in that to show him this is absolutely something you can do and be passionate about. And we also put a limit on it. We don't do more than 30 minutes. He wants to use it more than 30 minutes a lot. And we go, you know what? In our life right now, 30 is enough. Your brother's passionate about it too now because you're passionate about it. So Henry started doing it and it's great. We accept that and we are letting him do it. That's all that to say, when you see love and joy and self-control, there's absolutely technology out there that helps your children grow in those areas. It can be as simple as watching a Wildcrats. My kids watch Wildcrats and they want to get all the books on bugs. Awesome. That is a net gain. Please go watch Wildcrats. It's if you watch a Bluey or a Daniel Tiger and your child enacts some of the kindness or some of the creativity they saw in that show, it's worth 8 to 15 minutes of your life to see something done well and then implement that well. Like, yeah, those are good uses of technology. Even some of the drool tech, both those shows are delivered through streaming services, but it's also possible you take something that's perfectly fine, which we've done. I won't name any of them, but this has happened with 2 types of tech specifically. One was a game and one was a show. And they engaged it. There was nothing morally wrong with it. There was nothing behaviorally or design wrong with it. And yet it ate our children alive. And we watched them produce really bad fruit. The bad fruit, by the way, Galatians 5:19 through 21, includes strife and jealousy and fits of anger, quick onset, snap rage, rivalries, division and dissension, envy. Like these are things that come up where I'm no longer satisfied. I have to have this next thing. I have to have the VIP version. We have to pay more money for this product because I don't have the best version. I'm not satisfied because I only played 30 minutes, but I have to play an hour because I have to keep up with the Joneses. I was okay with my life until I went on this platform and then I saw everyone else's lives and now my life is terrible. I was okay with my life until I went on there and saw content that made me lust or that made me angry, that made me confused, or that made me anxious. It doesn't have to be morally wrong to affect your child in a poor way. And in both cases, we got rid of it. We did the Matthew 5:28 through 30. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. For it's better for you to go into the kingdom of heaven without an eye or without a hand than for you to go whole into the fires of hell. And Jesus in that is talking specifically about when we partake in actions that cause us to sin. It doesn't mean that this thing is even morally wrong in itself, but you sin because of it. You lust. You get fits of anger and rage, and you murder your brother in your heart because of your cynicism, because of whatever, your bitterness, because of your past experiences. Those are things that you cut off and gouge out because God is better. And he's better even than whatever you're using that tech for. And he can bring you all the joy, satisfaction, and resource you need without you engaging that. Doesn't mean it'll be easy. Sometimes we have to cut off things that are really convenient, like your app store, like the privacy of your own browser. With my smartphone, right? Like I cut that stuff off and gouge it out because it wasn't helping me. And I like making good choices. So you can too, and you can help your child do the same. So that's when we talk about technology. Your child comes today and says, Mom or Dad, when can I get this technology? When can I listen to this music? When can I play this game? You're going to say, is it safe? Are you ready? Is the fruit good? Is once we've given it to you? And that's in tandem with your reset. The way it affects your relationships and your responsibilities, your emotions, your sleep, your enjoyment, and your time. With those two together, you have a robust conversation that covers all the tech that's currently out and any tech that will be out in the near future. And you're going to be able to use it well. And you're going to be training your child to recognize what it's like to use well and when your child is not because he or she is being a prodigal and intentionally doing the wrong thing, you're going to have loving conversation points that aren't simply judgmental. Obviously, you're judging because the whole thing with removing a plank and then the splinter is you recognize your need, so you're judging yourself, and then you're extending and saying, hey, that's not good. That's a judgment. You can do that. But you can't say, and therefore you're no good. Don't do that. The tech becomes expendable because your child is not. And that is the point that we are driving home again and again and again, is the reason for these standards, the reason for this distance, the reason for this safety precaution, and the reason we're saying no is because we do love you. And we are not convinced that this is a safe or a good call. And you are welcome to press into that using those exact words to talk it out with your children, with your spouse, with your neighbors, the friends the friends' houses that your kids are going to go to. These are how you talk about it. It doesn't mean it's always comfortable. It doesn't mean people always receive it well, but it means it's loving. You're being deliberate, and you're keeping the focus on the hope you have for your children, the truth of who they are in Christ, and using the best tech well. So I hope it was encouraging and helpful for you. If it was, would you share it with someone? If you have any questions, would you send me a note, nathan@gospeltech.net, or you can send me a direct message. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Love God Use Tech. And then would you join us next week as we continue this conversation about how we can love God and use tech?